Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have a crushing game to share with you, one of the classics. This one from 1889 on the white end, Emanuel Lasker, playing against Johann Bauer. All right, 21-year-old Lasker, starting with the birds opening. 5 years later, he'd become world champion and only hold on to that title for 27 years. Can you imagine that? Longest reign of any world champion. Now, the focus in this opening here is on that e5 square. Both f4 and b3, directly, indirectly, are paving the way for more control over this e5 square. Bishop ready to focus on that point as well. We might even regard e3 as helpful in some cases in this fight over the e5 square. If available, in some cases, the bishop could maybe look to eliminate a knight, which is a key defender of e5. How it plays out in this game, bishop has a different plan in mind. We'll see what that is. There we go. Now, normally, you're not going to want to obstruct a center pawn like this, but it is an interesting setup that Lasker goes for. A couple pawns in this game here are obstructed. The knight does not intend to stick around on this c3 square for long. This is really a key ingredient for this attack here. The bishop's both barreling down here towards the king side. Bishop b7, knight f3, knight b to d7, both sides castles. So from here, let's see, knight maneuver, knight e2. And from here, black goes with c5. Now, a better approach here for black is to eliminate this really strong bishop. This is a window for black to do that. Once the knight is on e2, black has knight c5 here, and you could get this knight for bishop exchange. It's still a game, so a position like this, computer has its eye on d4, challenging the duo, or even prying open a file here with f5, carving out some squares. But no knight c5 in this game, rather c5. Knight continues its journey. Queen c7. Knight hops in. Now, black ends up capturing the knight. Computer does not like this. Instead, another move here, centralize a rook. Look forward to an eventual d4 move. Rook is supporting that pawn. Rook is also opposite the queen. Now how black plays it. Ends up capturing on e5. And how Lasker responds, he takes with the bishop. So keeps this diagonal open for the bishop. It says best, however, is to take with the pawn. Be okay obstructing your bishop. You do free this rook. And also kick this knight from its best square. This is a key defensive piece, and now it's going to have to find a new home. Where does it go if this was the capture? If you're running in reverse, well, as soon as the knight moves, I should note, these two squares open up for the queen. They become interesting options. And if the knight dives in the center, capturing with the bishop, following up with queen to g4 is excellent for white. This pawn is ready to be collected. Simple moves. Rook f2. Should there be any pressure on d2. Next up, double up the rooks. Very strong position, a winning position here for white. How it's played in this one, though, we see the bishop recapture. And from here, queen c6. Follow up now, queen to e2. There's this idea by black after queen c6 to play d4. Mate threat on g2. Some defense over that square. Follow up from here is a6. Pop quiz. How would you respond here? Feel free to pause the video. All right, a6 is a losing move. What would have been better is g6, guarding this h5 square. There's a winning move now after the move in the game at a6, and that is knight to h5, completing its journey, came all the way from the queen side, and it is now removing this key kingside defender. What is black supposed to do now? We have these two open diagonals. The queen is ready to enter. There's a rook lift as well right around the corner. Nearly every white piece is ready to enter in on this attack. This rook is not long off. Options here for black. In the game, it's knight takes knight. We'll see what happens after that. If you try something else, let's say you, well, first of all, if you don't move the knight, you end up with double F pawns. That's going to be a disaster. Queen is going to enter. There's going to be a problem on h7. Rook up and over ideas, one way or the other. If the knight goes to e8 to try and hang on to this, maybe look forward to this move, not going to work because there's this shot, bishop takes g7, followed up with queen g4. And what do you do about the mate threat on g7? You would have to play bishop f6 and give up a full piece, and we don't have to go much further. This point is ready to collapse. It's just a mate in a few from here. So the try in this game here, after Lasker drops the knight on h5, it's knight takes knight. No immediate recapture. If you do queen takes knight here, black can defend. There's a key pawn move, only one move here that defends, and that would be f5. So these two both address the mate threat on h7. Of the two, f5 is least weakening. If you play g6, two dark square weaknesses, they could be exploited with queen h6. And now there's a mate threat on g7, and if you play f6 to defend that, in comes the sacrifice on g6, and this following idea, rook up and over for mate. But black would be able to defend an immediate recapture here on h5 with f5, and it's still a game. Black is holding this. What's the move then? Well, rather than the capture, we go with a forceful approach, checking the checks first. There is only one, and it is the winning way. Bishop sacrifice number 1. Now we swipe the knight with check, and in comes bishop sacrifice number 2. Completely winning now for white. In the game, it's king takes bishop. Other options, there is a mate threat here on h8, so the only other one to really look at is f6, producing a square for the king. We don't go into h8 in this case. Rather, we would invite another piece into the attack. And let's say d4 is played here. We could back off the bishop. Now there's this as a mate in 2 threat, as well as the rook entering with check. And this is going to be completely crushing. For instance, rook f7, rook g3. If the king goes here, bishop f8 is checkmate, discovered checkmate. And if the king goes to h8, you're certainly asking for trouble. There would be a double check and mate. So the try in this game here by black is to capture the bishop. Queen g4 check. You have to go to the h file. If you step up here to f6, that's mate. So it's king h7 in this game. Rook f3, we're at move 19, the halfway point of the game. Black did not have it in him to resign. The queen ends up going on a rampage in this game shortly. The only way to prolong the mate is to play e5. That's what we see. Rook h3 check. The queen could now block. Well, queen's down for the count, and there we go. The queen ready to collect even more material. So let's see how this one finishes up. Queen, as mentioned, going wild here, tracking down material. This pawn was poison. Bishop takes pawn. There's queen e6, hitting the bishop, threatening mate. F6 does not defend the bishop. We can still take because of the pin. So the pawn lives, bishop backs off, rook ready to crash through, white's hammering away at F7 now, and we can sacrifice some material. In the end, there's this fork. You have to step over to defend this rook, but in just a couple moves, we pick up the vulnerable B7 rook. There goes the A6 pawn, a couple more captures, and finally, after queen takes D3, black had it in him to resign. Crushing game, this one here, out of the birds opening with the double bishop sacrifice. Anyhow, what are your thoughts on this one? Feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.